Mm-hmm. Preparing. Taking a bit of time.
It's saying meeting is now streaming live when you.
Yeah, this is streaming.
Okay, cool. We're live.
Okay. Oh, can you hear my voice there? Okay, then brilliant. Okay, so Bismillah, I'll just start off. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the next installment in the Let's Talk Careers series, mini series on our show Chit, Chat, and Chai. Today, we are joined by a psychologist, seeing as the topic is psychology. Are you a doctor? Sorry, what's that? Yeah,
I'm not
no,
a psychologist either.
you're not a psychologist. Oh wow, we have really wow. Okay, well that's a fumble there. Khair,
But
Bismillah. Well, yeah. You can just explain why we brought you on here today.
I guess you guys you want me to speak about psychology in general. And there's more to psychology in terms of you don't have to be a psychologist to be someone who's interested in psychology. And that's why a lot of people think that everyone who does psychology is a psychologist. But in actual fact, there's differences in the profession.
Yeah, because you were also, like we just said before we started streaming, you were also on the extra time side of things, talking about mental health and stuff. So, yes, Serifa, if you want to just kick things off, inshallah, our list of questions.
Yeah, so Michael, thank you for joining us again. I'm going to quickly go over your bio, so everyone, those who haven't been on extra time, kind of know a little bit about yourself. So, Farhana Malik, she has graduated in psychology and is currently undertaking a master's in global and cultural perspectives in mental health. A qualified psychological wellbeing practitioner who provides therapy to those suffering from depression, anxiety, stress, and sleep problems, and also an outreach manager for a faith-based mental health charity called Inspirited Minds, where she provides workshops to the community about mental health and Islam. So thank you for joining us again. Like you said,
yeah, quite accomplished.
Without further ado, should we just go straight in, Tahmid?
Yeah. So, let's just start at the beginning of your whole journey, seeing as this is supposed to be a careers thing. Yeah, how did you get into psychology? What route did you take, or when did you find yourself like, okay, I want to give this a go? Was it all the way in primary school? Is that a thing?
So I forgot to salam everyone. So assalamu alaikum to everyone joining and the team here. So yeah, where was my interest? I guess when I was younger, I have a big family. I've got 9 siblings and I'm the 10th. There's 5 of each, so there's like a football team in my team.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't. Not joking. It is. Not when I was younger, because I'm the baby. So the common stereotype of the baby gets bullied and picked on. Yeah, that was me. No, I'm pretty sure they didn't.
I mean, the stereotype is also the youngest is like the favored one. No. Youngest and eldest and middle is completely forgotten. Although middle of 10. So all of the 8 in between are forgotten, according to my theory.
I don't
No,
think so.
It might just be my family then.
It depends on the situation, but I think the middle child tends to get neglected anyways. I think the oldest and the youngest tend to have like more attention, but it's different in each family, I suppose. But to answer your question, I was interested because of my family. Firstly, every one of my family members has a different personality. They behave or respond in a certain way. And I noticed as a kid, I was just like, why do they behave like that? Why do they respond like that? And my interest didn't come from that curiosity. It came from language first. So I love learning languages. So when I was a kid, I learned French, and then I went to do GCSE French and then A-level French. I started learning Arabic when I was younger as well, really young actually. Obviously everyone learns Quran or recite Quran, but they don't learn the language. Well, I'm not going to say everyone doesn't, but like when I was younger, it wasn't a common thing to learn the language. It's common to read Quran but not learn it. But at a young age, I was learning the language, and then I stopped and then returned back to it, alhamdulillah, in adulthood. And like I learned like other different languages, like Turkish. Obviously, I'm pretty sure everyone's watched Ertuğrul or Osman. So
Yeah,
like
that's true. Wait, so you've learned Turkey? You've learned what is it, Farsi, right?
Farsi is
Is
Persian.
it?
So like
Ah, so what
Iranian,
is is
Iranian.
Turkish just Turkish?
Turkish is just Turkish in
Okay,
Turkey.
okay. Wait, so
Yeah.
you can actually speak like fluently, converse? Can you like
No,
read and write?
no, no, no. I know like conversationally.
Okay.
I know Turkish
So
conversationally.
you
And
didn't need
Mm.
subtitles for Ertuğrul.
pardon?
You didn't need subtitles
You
for
don't use
Ertuğrul.
subtitles.
Ertuğrul, I do need subtitles still, but I can understand bits and bobs. I've got a close friend who's Turkish, and like I try and communicate with her mom in Turkish. And I've been to Turkey for a couple of years in the summer, so I try to use my Turkish there
Oh
too.
wow,
So
so
if you
like
want to learn a
commitment.
language, go to a different country. But back to my point, so I was really interested in why language, like how does language develop? How do we learn languages? Why do we learn languages so quickly? And how do they differ across countries? And I did like a research project in my A level, and I found out that, you know, by the age of 7, if you don't learn language, or actually 4, then it gets harder to learn languages. And yeah, it was just my curiosity in how the human mind develops and how we as humans develop behaviorally. So it started really young through a very different way, I guess.
And then from languages you went to psychology.
Yeah, so I did A-level psychology
Mm.
as a subject, and I did French for A-levels as well. I wanted to choose French for my degree because I really loved language, and I don't know why I was fascinated by French culture. I'm not going to go into the political side of it, but I enjoyed
Yeah.
French. And then I just chose psychology because I did better in my psychology A level, and I wanted to be a psychologist, but there are hurdles that I implicitly kind of I don't know, like I got this vibe of what type of psychologist, you know, society is looking for. But I wanted to be a psychologist still, although I knew that it was a bit far-fetched for me to be in that field. Because I think when anyone thinks about psychologists, they're like, oh yeah, white person with a chair out.
Clipboard. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is an image. There's a profile.
Yeah, and that's like the American version of what people see, because obviously from movies you see a psychologist that does that. There are psychologists that do that, but there are also different professions that do that as well. Not different, but like similar professions. So yeah, don't know if I
So
answered
tell us,
the question.
No,
are you
no,
kind
yeah,
of
no,
like
that's good.
specializing in a particular kind of psychology in a field? Because psychology is very broad, isn't it? So it's not just psychology itself and that's it. Like, tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about that, and then like how you kind of got into where you are now.
So with psychology, you're right, it is very broad, and there's so many different avenues that someone can enter. The avenue that I entered is clinical psychology. So that's more around someone who's struggling with psychological distress. For example, anxiety, depression, stress, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, personality disorder, these clinical diagnoses. The other offshoots of psychology are like organizational psychology. So like, you know, HR in organizations, you know, they would be linked with an organizational psychologist. So from like a broader corporate level. We also have like sports psychologists. So like, you know, with athletes, they have psychologists who support them to get them back on track. You have did I say occupational psychology? Yeah, I did. Occupational psychology.
Yeah.
What else is there? There's so many. I can't think of all of them. Those are the things that came to my mind because they did interest me. Oh yeah, and there's counseling psychology as well. So that's different to clinical psychology. Counseling psychology is more like counseling.
One-to-one
Would that be a
treatment.
completely different degree, or would that be part of psychology?
That would be, all of those would be a part of psychology. So the psychology undergrad is the foundation. So if you know you want to be a therapist, regardless what type of therapy it is, psychology is your foundation. If you want to be a psychologist, psychology is your foundation.
Okay. Then to be
Thank you.
sorry, just want to expand. A clinical psychologist like you, do you need to be a doctor in any shape or form? As in like have medicinal knowledge?
No. You don't
Are
need
you
to
in
have
contact with GPs and stuff like that?
So with a psychologist, okay, I'll give you the time frame of how long it would take to become a psychologist. So you do your undergrad in psychology BSc, most likely. I'm not sure about BA BSc, but psychology is BSc mostly. And then you have experience as an assistant psychologist. So you're working under a qualified psychologist. And you can also get experience as a psychological wellbeing practitioner, which I am currently. I used to be an assistant psychologist before that, but that's like the gold standard, let's say, and also very hard to get into. So getting experience in your undergrad as a support worker, as a volunteer for a mental health charity or something similar would help to get an AP role somewhere, or mental health support worker in the NHS. So you do that for a number of years. And then you have to apply for the doctorate, so the clinical psychology doctorate, which is through the Clearinghouse website. So you know how university students have UCAS?
Yep.
We have a system called Clearinghouse. Now you have to apply, I think, between September and November, and then interviews start, March to May, I think. But it's not guaranteed that you'd get an interview, and it's not guaranteed that you'd get a place. Like the statistics is like 16% out of 5,500 applicants. So it is very competitive. It's more competitive than med school, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, it is really competitive. I think
any med school students watching that right now, any med school students watching this are gonna absolutely lose it.
I think med school is competitive, but when you come to think of this, I'm not a clinical psychologist yet.
Yeah.
I'm not a clinical psychologist yet. It's taken me this is my 5th year applying. And everyone
is that 5th year after study, sorry? As in after you've done your degree?
6 years after, my 6th year after studying. So it's taken me 6 years. But I'm not saying that everyone is in the same position as me. I've had many friends who are a person of color or who are a person of faith who have got into the field after like 3 years. It is, we don't know the reasons how people get in, but a lot of people say it's, it's your fate. It was within your fate to get in that time. So it is hard. It's very competitive. And then once you get into that course, you do it for 3 years, and then you have to finish your thesis, your viva, and then you become a qualified doctor. Your name.
Is that similar to a PhD then?
It is a PhD.
Okay.
Training PhD,
okay.
Yeah.
So you do your undergrad, then you did an undergrad, and then you had like an assistant role. And from there you went on to do some further experience, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and then you're doing your master's now, and then you do your PhD. So yeah, it's quite a long route, isn't it, to take?
It is, yeah.
It's not literally just do a BSc and then do a master's and that's it. You're like qualified and then get some experience and you're done.
Yeah, it is quite different because in other countries, once you do your BSc, you're considered as a qualified psychologist already.
Which countries?
Australia, from what I'm aware of, you're known as a psychologist. I think in Netherlands, they have a similar term as well. I think it's after a master's you get it. But just to tell everyone, you don't need to have a master's to get into the clinical doctorate. I'm just doing it because I'm in the field, and it gives me more research experience.
Okay.
Nice. That's where Tamin might go then.
Yeah,
right?
Might just move to Australia. Just leave uni here.
Well.
Probably New Zealand. Maybe not Australia. You're breaking up.
Yeah, breaking up, Arifa. But yeah, no, because
Okay.
I'm studying a degree to become a psychologist. Well, not to become a psychologist. I'm studying a psychology degree. After everything you just said, that's all I'm going to say to people. I don't want to become a psychologist.
I think you should, because we need more males.
Yeah, that's all my teachers have been telling me this.
And you're probably more likely to get on. I don't like.
Favorite treatment. I will take it.
I don't know. You're more likely to get on because we need more males. We need more people of color. We need more males. I'm not saying that it's guaranteed you get on, but
Yeah.
it's gonna start flying. So I think you should still continue. I don't think you should give up. I nearly gave up last year, and a lot of my colleagues were saying, no, don't give up. We need more people like you in the field. The system is what it is, and it is hard to crack the field, but the more you work towards it, the more you'll start seeing more changes, inshallah. So like 10 years ago, there weren't many people of color as psychologists or training as psychologists, and now we're seeing more and more and more, alhamdulillah. So the more people go for this field, the better. And it doesn't mean you don't necessarily need to work towards the doctorate. You can work towards being a high intensity therapist or a psychological well-being practitioner like myself. You can be a counseling psychologist. You can be a counselor. There's so many different avenues that you can take, but all of these different professions have differences within them. They're just different slightly. A psychologist, it's more around being trained in working with different populations. You learn how to do, use different tools to assess and diagnose people. Maybe not diagnosed as in mental health difficulty, but more around older adult population. So like memory issues, stuff like that. But there are so many differences amongst all of them. It's trying to have experience and understanding what the differences are and where you want to go.
So how long did it take you before you actually chose the route of clinical psychology? Did you kind of know from undergrad that this is where you want to go, or is it after you complete your degree you're like, okay, well, I want to do clinical, it might take a few years, but I still want to kind of go for it despite all the challenges that you've had along the way? What instigated or what inspired you to go down the clinical route and not like counseling or occupational therapy, for example?
So when I was in undergrad, I asked one of my lecturers what do I need to get, or what do I need to do in order to go for the clinical psychology route. And she said, you only need a high 2-1, you don't need a master's. It was quite, I think I knew I wanted to go into the clinical psychology field because in undergrad, they don't really talk about, or when I was in my undergrad studies, they didn't really talk about all these different types of psychology. They didn't talk about sports psychology. They didn't talk about occupational psychology. They didn't talk about counseling psychology. I think a lot of us thought psychologist just means someone supporting someone or an individual who's suffering from mental health difficulties. Obviously, the movies, we get that assumption from movies, we get that assumption from a lot of people, and we get that assumption from what they teach us on the course. To be honest, I wanted to be a sports psychologist before a clinical psychologist, because before, my first job was a sports coach. So I really wanted to do something with sports. And I know that with sports and physical exercise, it's very therapeutic for our mental health. So it was sports psychology first, but there's not a lot of jobs for sports psychology, and it was a very niche area. So yeah, after I graduated, I wanted to be I wanted to work towards clinical psychology, and I gave up at one point because I was just like, this is too competitive. It's not for a person of my skin tone. This is a white field. I don't belong here.
Yeah.
Then my dad passed away in 2015, and I thought that was like a epiphany moment, and I was just like, no, I need to make a difference, and to put my superwoman cape on a
superhero origin story.
So yeah, and I thought I'm gonna battle through this, and whatever challenges I come across, and I have been through a lot of challenges, I'm still gonna persevere, even if it takes me a long time. I'm still gonna persevere because my intentions are to help the community that is neglected, and we need more people of color, we need more people of faith to support these communities in an efficient, meaningful way.
Yeah, no, I agree that I think in our community in general, a lot of the whole mental health situation is just being discovered now, like how deeply affected some people are for things that have been going on for years. Some people, like for someone maybe going through depression, yet they've never taken the term because it's seen as a disability. So I think in our community especially, there's like mental health is really coming to the surface now, and people are seeing it as okay, so it's a real thing. It's not just something that you recite surahs on and pray it goes away, so to speak. Because I had an experience with like that as well, where one of my cousins um, was going through something, and at the time it was treated as something small, insignificant, and it was constantly like brush it off, brush it off, brush it off, and their life spiraled downwards, sort of. So yeah, unfortunately, it has mental health in general has been a little smothered, I suppose, in our thing. But moving from there now with the whole psychology sort of thing, misconceptions and things like that. What is, because while studying psychology, and now that I've become a uni student studying it, one of my friends turned and said to me, "Oh, don't psychologize me now." And I was just as amazed as he was when I was like, what does that even mean? How do you even spell that? And yeah, so he then went on to explain that it's some sort of mind control slash memory reading or something like that. So what misconceptions or things have you come across in your journey and as someone studies psychology, where people you've just sort of been like, no, that's not how it is, that's not how it works?
It's really interesting that we're discussing this, because I really, really don't like telling people what my profession is, because the first thing guaranteed that they will say is, stop reading my mind. When in actual fact, Allah hasn't given me that power to do that. I'm sorry. I wish He did. So we can't read your mind. I'm not a psychologist, firstly. So there's a difference. And even if I was a psychologist, I still wouldn't be able to read your mind. I think it's because, when individuals like you and I go into this field, we are going to this field because we're good listeners. Alhamdulillah. We want to help others feel heard. And I think with that comes good communication skills, or being aware of our emotions and how we react and respond to certain situations. So when we talk to others, we may, and I do this too, and my family tell me, stop psychologizing me, or I'm not your therapist.
Yeah.
It just kind of like, it makes me reflect a bit more, and I just think, that's really interesting. But I think as people in this profession, we do reflect on a lot. We introspect, we reflect on ourselves, and we reflect on our surroundings. So when we make people aware of their responses to certain situations, it kind of alarms them, perhaps. I like to slow things down. I like to kind of just be like, oh, I've just noticed this. Have you noticed it too?
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't like to be aware of their behavior. I don't mean to do it, but I think, Islam emphasizes reflection so much that I just think it's so within our faith. Why shouldn't we reflect on our behavior? Why shouldn't we reflect on our responses and how emotional, like how our emotions, not dictate, but like influence how we behave? And, obviously you have to choose when you ask people to be mindful of certain situations. It takes a good time and place to talk about it. So yeah, it isn't a night. I feel like it kind of puts people who are in this field in a pigeonhole, like as if they have superpowers when we don't have superpowers. We're just good at communicating.
Yeah.
And it's uncomfortable because then I'm making an assumption here, but I just feel like, what are you trying to hide? Why are you telling me don't read my mind? You want to tell me something? Tell me. So yeah, it's like, don't read my mind. Like, everyone has secrets, everyone has a background, everyone, even I do. And it is, a lot of people don't like to talk about their past. A lot of people don't like to talk about their problems. They want to hide it. And obviously in the community that we're in, we don't want to talk about our problems. We want to keep it within the home. We want to keep it within ourselves. Talking about it to others is very alarming. And that's why we're shifting, inshallah, to like openly talk about it, so we can use the ummah, we can use our community to support us. Like, our neighbors have a right over us. They should share their problems with us so we can help them. Like, we're like one body. one part of the body aches, the rest of the body aches. So why can't we share this with one another? Of course, there's that stigma again. And unfortunately, we all are weak to judgment. We are all weak to pointing the finger and not making 70 excuses for our fellow brothers and sisters. There's so many improvements that everyone can make, even myself. And that is the beauty of this profession. And as a Muslim, we try and strive to please Allah. We try and strive to help one another out. And all of us are bound to fall into weaknesses, but it's important to reflect and improve and carry on reflecting. You fall down, you pick yourself back up. You fall down, pick yourself back up. Forgive yourself, forgive others. There's like so many different ways to kind of see it, but like I feel like I'm waffling on.
Are you like the first person that all your friends come to when they need some sort of advice? It's like, Farhana, like let's give her a call because she knows the answers to all of these problems.
To be honest, no. I'm glad they don't.
No, that's usually not how it is.
They don't want to be psychoanalyzed.
No, they don't come to me actually. I think I like to stay out. I feel like my family come to me more, which is nice and very humbling, to be honest, because I'm the baby. But my friends, like, I think I go to them more because I feel like as I am a person who, is in this profession and helping others out, I need someone to vent to. I need someone to give me solutions. I can't know everything about me. I can't know what's right and wrong from what I do. I need my friends to support me. So they help me more than I help them, to be honest, which I'm really grateful for, alhamdulillah.
And as a psychologist, if you've got like a client who's come with some like really heavy stuff, how do you kind of manage it? How do you kind of not take that stuff on and take it home with you?
Yeah, how do you not take work home?
Yeah.
Okay. This is an interesting question, but I just wanted to just ask you if you cannot call me a psychologist because I'm not a psychologist. Therapist would probably be an easier term to use because I know psychological wellbeing practitioner is a very mouthfully word.
Yeah.
It's not even a word, but I just made it a word. How do I not take clients' problems home? Now, during lockdown, it affected me so bad because you can't take work. I mean, you can't leave work at home because your work is at home.
Yeah.
So it's important to be aware of your triggers. There are certain things that trigger me. So, for example, sexual abuse triggers me. Domestic violence triggers me. Injustices trigger me. Racism triggers me. And these are my trigger points. And I need to be aware of that and how that makes me react. If as you provide therapy more, you learn how to manage it in that moment. And then afterwards, you use your peer support network, you use your colleagues to reflect, you use supervision with your managers to talk about, oh, this client really, said something in that session and it triggered me. How do I process this a bit more? And sometimes you just need to take care of yourself. Like I go for runs. I went for a run yesterday after 3 weeks. I died. It's important to take care of yourself. And using your support network, using your family, not just thinking about work all the time. I know as Muslims, we always care about taking care of the needy, taking care of those who are, oppressed, those who are struggling. And at the same time, our body has a right over us as well. And that means taking care of it because it's an amana. Allah has given us this whole being as a gift. What are we doing to take care of it? And that means having a balance of your professional, your personal life as well. Having a balance of your spirituality, your physical being, your social networks and stuff. Having a balance of all of these things. And when you neglect one of them, that's when you start seeing that imbalance, that instability. So what I'm trying to say is you need to use your support network. You need to know what your coping strategies are, healthy coping strategies. When I went through that difficult time during COVID, I was staying at home most of the time. I wasn't talking to anyone. I deleted social media. I'm not saying that social media is all bad. It is good to some extent. I deleted WhatsApp. That means a lot.
Wow.
Yes.
That's like the texting app of this generation.
Yes, yeah. So I literally went KO with everything because it was just so overwhelming. But alhamdulillah, like I went for my cycles, I read a lot, I spent a lot of time under trees, and that made me reflect more. And sometimes when we're in this city, we're always running, busy, 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 tube, central line, XYZ. And you just need to just take a step back, embrace what Allah has given you, give yourself time to think, because we don't take much time to think. I know we have salah, but how many of us rush salah? How many of us, recite and just don't even, reflect on what you're reciting? It's so easy, even for myself, it's so easy to pray when I've got an assignment, when I've got XYZ to do, and just don't think about what I'm actually saying. Am I actually truly connecting? So these type of moments, you need to actually ground yourself and connect and give yourself time for your mind to slow down. So there's a lot of steps and it takes time. It isn't something that happens overnight. It's a skill in itself. Self-care is a skill.
Okay, and do you have like mentors around? Do you actually ever go to like at work? Do you actually go to a mentor, or do you go to like a person who's above you and kind of debrief if it's a really, really difficult case before you go home and do all the other personal things that you do as well?
So I have been I do that. But sometimes you feel a bit I feel a bit guilty going to ask for help so many times because I know I need to ask for a lot of help. But I like to develop that resilience myself and manage it myself. So develop my coping strategies first before needing someone else. Now that's not always helpful. Sometimes it's best to go to someone else first before you manage it yourself, because you don't want it to escalate. So my managers have been really helpful where I do debrief with them. My colleagues are another support system who I go to as well. And there's other support networks I have outside of work as well who I go to for like just debriefing. Yeah.
Chocolate for that. That was well, yeah. The whole self-care thing. I suppose, like you said, self-care is a skill. I feel it's one that's very difficult to master, and one that is the easiest to forget about, I suppose.
It is. Yeah. Time management is something that I learned this year, and time management means compartmentalizing. So if I finish work, I'm not thinking about you work, I'm thinking about running now, know? So it's about really learning how to switch off. And that's okay.
Is it about being present as well in a moment?
Pardon?
Is it about being present in a moment as well, especially with the lockdown? And like sometimes your work can kind of, for some of us who work from home, kind of seep into, you kind of feel guilty about switching off. So what would you recommend, like just kind of completely switching off from work and then focusing on the next best thing?
So I would say changing your environment. That is one of the best things you can do. Like there was a psychological study which found like how do people learn best or memorize. It's like a study skill, and they did it in different environments, and they found out that if you study in like an exam condition place, you're more likely to retain that information. Now I'm not saying that in this situation they're all exactly the same, but the situation you're in still keeps you in that mind frame. Do you know what I mean? So if you're on work mode and you're still in that desk, you're still going to be in that desk. You need to move yourself from that situation, from that environment, to disengage, to help your mind connect that work is table, personal time is kitchen table or couch or TV or outside if you want to run. So you have to change your environment and you have to physically get out, because there is a huge connection between our physical body, our spiritual self, and our mind as well. And sometimes our physical self and our mind are disconnected, and we know that in Asian communities we somaticize, meaning we make our physical pain more, like we express it more in terms of like, oh, I'm stressed, when in actual fact, oh no, I'm like, my shoulders are hurting, or I've got a headache, in actual fact I'm actually stressed. you know. So we try and somaticize. We actually do somaticize our problems. So it's important to take a breather, step outside of your house or the room, talk to someone. Don't stay in bed all the time. I'm not guilty. Well, I am guilty of it, but alhamdulillah, not anymore. So, you know, it is important to step outside, move your body, move your limbs, do some exercise. Exercise is so, so important. And
Yeah,
eat
you've really
healthy
been
as well.
pushing that. You've really been pushing the whole exercise agenda for the last half an hour.
Yeah.
So,
I
you
think
know,
doing
yeah,
psychology first of all.
yeah.
You're saying something.
You know what? That was so that was what I was gonna ask. That next is like practical applications for psychology in our modern world now, because, like I said, mental health is something that's cropping up everywhere.
Mm.
So aside from the sporting stuff, where else can you find application for just psychology in general? Because I once went to the doctor, and once he'd found out I was studying psychology, he then told me one of his friends became a film producer after studying psychology.
Mm.
So yeah, what are the applications for psychology in our world today?
Oh, that's a big question. You're asking someone that hasn't explored psychology to the max.
Okay, then, yeah, to your for your based on your experience.
So I've had friends who have studied psychology and have become teachers. Now, this is a really good skill. I think teachers should be psychologists because, you know, our teachers are like they're making the next generation. So is our parents. But our teachers are like a huge influence. And if a psychologist can understand a child's behavior and how they respond to certain situations, and they tailor their responses or communication with them, then that would help their development throughout the year. So teachers, I'm not sure about film producers, but I think that was the person's interest, maybe.
Maybe.
To be honest, let's be honest. Any degree you have, you can go anywhere.
You
That's
just need a
true.
degree, yeah.
You just need a degree, but
You just
not
need a degree.
everyone needs to do a degree to have a good job. Like I've got friends who didn't do a degree and they're getting paid more than me, and I'm just like, I'm still not getting paid as much. So experience is still very valuable.
Okay. Personal question. Right. So with the whole school stuff, I don't know. I don't know how much you know about it, but my thing is, my personal situation is I'm studying psychology, and on the other side, I work with SEN kids and kids with behavioral needs. So I was wondering, what are the options that I could explore in the school, in the education system, about to do with psychology? Because I want to work with children with behavioral issues and stuff, as a career. But what sort of stuff is open in that field? Do you know?
Yeah, you've just popped another psychologist role, so educational psychologist. So they work in schools. Psychotherapists work in schools as well. CAMS, Children and Adolescents, Adolescent Mental Health Service. So you could become a support worker there. You could become an assistant psychologist there. You could become a psychologist there. Those are the different roles you can have as well. If you want to be in schools, that CAMS, the Children and Adolescent Mental Health Service, and schools do work along with each other as well. There's also like children and family centers. So there are roles that you can play. There are roles within that you can take up. There's like innovative community projects. So last year I was a boxing coach and an assistant psychologist, which is an innovative community project, and they worked with at-risk youth offenders and individuals who were struggling with mental health difficulties, and they used the boxing gym as a way of engaging with them because they weren't engaging with mainstream services. So they are very niche, but there are community opportunities like that. But CAMS would be the main point of contact. Schools as well, like you can shadow like educational psychologists or counselors. Yeah,
There's actually a lot.
there is
I
a lot.
mean, yeah. When you list it like that, there's a lot.
And like National Autistic Society work with individuals or like young people who have autism. there are like disability related organizations who work with young people. And, as I mentioned, your physical well-being and your mental well-being all linked together. So just because someone's got a disability doesn't mean that they don't struggle with mental health difficulties. They could very well struggle with mental health difficulties.
Okay, and just a question for like the young people who may be considering psychology: do they have to study psychology at A level or at GCSE at some point in order for them to go into psychology, or can they actually apply for it directly at university?
I don't have the answer to that, but when I was a kid, I'm joking. This was only 6 years ago. When I was in uni, I think I had to do psychology in order to do psychology or a social science. So even sociology, yeah, even sociology would get you into a psychology degree. What I would suggest is for everyone who is considering psychology, please do check the prospectus for each university and see what they want. Like some universities might want you to do a subject in one or certain areas, so it's important.
Social sciences.
Yeah, it's important, or biology or something. Maybe is that social science? I don't even know.
That's the core
I
science.
don't either. Yeah,
it's one of those sciences.
No, because I didn't do psychology. I did a BTEC in sixth form, and then I took 2 years, and then when I started working this job with the whole SEN kids and the behavioral problems, then I applied for my degree, and my uni accepted me, alhamdulillah. So,
mashallah.
Yeah. So I think it's based like case by case scenario based on what your personal experiences are.
I don't know how it's
like
now. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have the answer for that.
That's not age; it changes all the time.
You're saying like check the prospectus, check the specs before you're applying. It depends on the university that you're applying for, right?
Yeah.
Cool. And any burning questions? We're going to end it very, very soon. Any burning questions have we got? Any burning questions, Tahmid, before we let Farhana go? Because I'm sure she's got.
Alhamdulillah. I think all the questions have been answered. All my questions have been answered. Thank you.
And what about the if you haven't had a undergrad, so if you haven't done an undergrad psychology degree, and then a couple of years, you graduate, and then you kind of think, oh, you know what, psychology is quite interesting. For those people who want to consider psychology at the later stage, what would you recommend to them? Do they have to kind of do the undergrad and then do the master's and go into it that way, or can they do a master's, or what's the kind of, how do they go about that essentially?
So they would have to do a conversion course for 2 years, so they don't have to pay for that third, having fun year. So we know that the first year is a fun year. No one really cares about the first year. So yeah, you'd have to do the conversion course. You don't have to do a master's. If you get like if you have like a good 2-1 in your first degree, let's say, then you don't need to do a master's. You just do the conversion course, get a good grade, a high 2-1, most likely, like over 65%. And one advice I'd give you is rinse the student support center. Ask everyone to proofread your work, because this is a really important career path you're taking, and you really want to get the most out of it. I unfortunately didn't rinse my student support center. I should have, but alhamdulillah, I'm here still. So you do your conversion course, and then get into the field by mental health support worker role in the NHS. Get your foot into the door. If you know someone who's in the NHS, ask them, do you know any opportunities? How can I improve my application? Your personal statement is really important when it comes to applying for places, and your interview contact is really important as well. So maybe for Faith and Inspire, if anyone else is interested, like maybe setting up like mentoring or like, interview skills practice or application practice, because it's so important how you present yourself. So yeah.
Yeah, all of that coming soon.
Inshallah.
I
just wanted to add one more like plug, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if any of your viewers or if you have heard of Inspirited Minds. So it's a faith-based mental health organization, so like Islamically orientated, and there's a plethora of information on our website around self-care, around so many different mental health difficulties, issues that our community members struggle with. And we have like, it integrates it with Islam. And a lot of people think mental health in Islam is very, very separate. In actual fact, we have such a rich history Islamically, related to our self, our psychology, our mind. And this website is great. I do volunteer with them, so I'm going to be a bit biased, but alhamdulillah, like, I'm so grateful that I volunteer with Inspirited Minds. So if you are interested in volunteering, please check them out. If you're interested in reading their newsletters or articles, sign up to the newsletter. We've got podcasts, we've got a YouTube channel as well, and we do outreach workshops. So we do run workshops to train imams, community leaders, school teachers, parents about mental health and Islam, because a lot of us aren't educated about how this links. They're not separate, they're very, very connected together with us. So yeah, I just wanted to plug that in, and share the word, because the reason why Inspirited Minds was founded was because there isn't a place where Muslims can go to find out information about mental health in Islam, and to access support. So we offer counseling as well, by Muslim counselors, for anyone who struggles with mental health difficulties. So do check them out. Do spread the word. If you spread the word, if you ease a hardship of one believer, there's so much reward coming from that, and it will pass on and pass on. So please do consider that, and share the word, inshallah.
Inshallah. Yeah. I'm probably going to volunteer too.
Inshallah.
I think it's pretty cool. Thank you. That's really important. That's a very important point that you've made, actually, because I think therapy in general is kind of, it's not, mental health and therapy is still not talked about as much, even in schools. And I think they've like campaigned a lot more, and with the lockdown and all of that, it's going to be a bigger issue, mental health. And would you say that psychology is still very mainstream?
What do you mean by that? Sorry.
So is it like, I guess when you have therapy and, you kind of think therapy, white male style, kind of, even within that profession, and there might be Muslims who might think, well, you don't connect with me, you don't really know what's going on, you're not from my community, it's a bit different. And even when you're kind of processing and going through that whole, like, they might be going through their journey or their story, but they've got to explain everything, because it's not somebody that kind of would understand even like the community dynamics, maybe, whereas somebody who's Muslim would kind of have a different approach or kind of see things differently, because it's more faith, they've got that faith as common ground. Would you say?
Yes, it's very much circular. The psychology service, predominantly is very circular. They don't consider, they do consider faith, but it's not in the forefront, if you know what I mean. There are some services that do consider faith, but it's very, very rare. So yeah, I would definitely say it's more mainstream. They try and adapt to the needs of these populations, but they still need to do more. And I guess, we would relate more to someone who's Muslim, because they would understand the background more, rather than us having to explain it more explicitly, which takes up more time in therapy to explain it to someone. So yeah, it is. And it is something that is known in terms of like, it's known that there needs to be changes or improvements around that. So inshallah, Tamid, apply, make some changes.
Inshallah, maybe in a few years.
Inshallah. May
Allah
success.
Yeah. And inshallah, you find success in everything that you're aiming for.
I mean,
we have to unfortunately leave it there, as interesting as this conversation is. Jazakallah khair for joining us. It's been very insightful. And I think the viewers, anyone watching who has a little bit of an interest in psychology, has definitely taken away a lot with them today. But yeah, so we're gonna leave it there, inshallah. Please, everyone watching, we do these every month, and like, subscribe to the channel for all of the content. We also have a backlog of streams and all sorts of other content. So feel free to check the channel out as well, inshallah. Facebook as well. There's some stuff there. But yeah, so we'll leave it there, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Catch you all at the next one, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome.